Hey guys, today we're reviewing this game here, Oasis, and this is for the Nintendo 3DS. I believe it's most compatible with the new Nintendo 3DS because it does take advantage of some of the features such as that little C-stick over on the right-hand side of your system, which helps you control the camera angles and stuff like that. So Oasis is a cute little game. It was actually developed by the people who made Secret of Mana back in the day. That's a pretty old game. It was for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. And the same people also helped create some of the Zelda games on the DS and 3DS, or at least they helped build the port for that. If you want to know what this game is about, basically Oasis is about a desert land where chaos has overrun the land, and the story starts with you choosing to be either a male or a female character. And after that point, you witness your older brother, the chief of an oasis, die at the hands of chaos. And the oasis is completely overrun and become barren. And afterwards, you have to take up the mantle of chief and start building your own oasis. And with the help of a water spirit named Esna, you hope to bring life back to the oasis, draw more people in, and hopefully banish chaos for good. So as I said, upon startup, you can choose to be a male or female. There's some slight customization in terms of appearance, but not much. And none of this really has any impact on the rest of the game. So let's talk a little bit about the features of the game. Town building is a huge one. So you get to build up your oasis from scratch. What happens is these little characters called seedlings will come into your oasis, and they usually want something in order to become a permanent resident. So you'll see them come in and you'll see their name, and usually there will be a little heart. That's their fulfillment meter. And sometimes it'll just be one heart, sometimes it'll be up to 4, and you have to fill up these hearts with what they want and what they need. So that can be anything from giving them an item, or if they want a particular thing from your town. Seedlings can build bloom booths, which are like little shops. So if one resident wants, say, a snack shop in your town, you have to build that shop. And sometimes you can't do that right away. Sometimes you have to wait for that resident who owns the snack shop to come to your town and then build that bloom booth. And by doing that, you gain another resident, or sometimes 2 or 3. And you can place a certain number of bloom booths in the town depending on your oasis level. This will level up depending on the number of residents in your oasis. And I think the max level is something like 30. You can't reach the max level until after you've beaten the game, actually. The other huge aspect of this game is obviously the RPG aspect. This is at its core an RPG, like real time, so you won't have the chance to pause in between making decisions, say like Final Fantasy or something like that. You will see the enemy on the map and then you'll have to just attack it. At the beginning, it will be just your character fighting, and then along the way, you'll be able to start asking your residents to come with you, and your residents have different abilities that you'll need to utilize. Some of them have like hammers, some of them have like little boomerangs, some of them have wands, and all of these have different strengths and weaknesses depending on the enemy. And they also have different attributes that can be utilized in different puzzles, because you'll be traversing different dungeons, and in those dungeons there are a lot of different puzzles that require, let's say, a boomerang to hit a switch on the wall. Your character doesn't have a boomerang, right? So you'll need somebody with you, And this can be done pretty easily, swapping out different characters. You can bring 2 with you at a time, so it's you plus 2 other characters. And swapping them out is pretty easily done by placing an aqua gate, which is like a little warp. So you place an aqua gate wherever you are, you warp back to town, swap out your characters, your equipment, whatever, and then you can warp right back to where you were. And of course, there are preset warp points for different dungeons, but the aqua gate you can put wherever you want and then warp right back there, which is awesome because you will be needing to use it a lot. There's also synthesis, which is basically weapon and item crafting. You can only do this in town. If you go back into your little home and go upstairs, there's a synthesis tree. And how you utilize this is you have different recipes that you learn either by taking on different quests and completing them. If you find a new weapon, that automatically gives you the recipe for that weapon later on. There's a number of different ways to get these recipes, but you need the items for them. You need the different ingredients. And once you have those ingredients, then you can craft the weapon or the item. You have to craft healing items. They aren't just given to you. You can get ingredients out in the wild, usually by defeating certain enemies, or you can mine at certain mining points or dig. And so finally, let's talk about the pros and cons of this game. Pros, I think the visuals are so cute. And not just cute, but when you're in the different dungeons, a lot of the visuals are just really, really pretty. And I've played quite a few 3DS games, and I've never just really looked at a game and thought, this is visually really pleasing to the eye. There's something about the 3DS that has just sort of choppy visuals at times, and the edges become a little bit blurred or distorted, I find. But the visuals on this just translate wonderfully. You could tell that they took a lot of time to make the visuals unique for each section, and they just translate really well. The music, likewise, is really nice. Each area definitely has its own unique sound, and because it's in a desert, you can definitely hear the sort of tones that you would normally hear in a desert environment in a game, but done in a way that's just kind of whimsical. It actually does really sound like a Zelda game at times, and the gameplay reminds me of Zelda when you're in a dungeon, the different puzzles that you have to kind of weave your way through. There's a lot of gameplay here, which is good because this game is actually pretty expensive. I don't know how much it is on the eShop right now, but to get a physical copy of it, it keeps going up and up and up in price. At least it does here in Canada. I don't know about you in other parts of the world, such as the US, but the last I looked, it was almost $80, not including tax. That's ridiculous for a handheld game. We usually pay $80, not including tax, for console games here in Canada. Yeah, we used to pay $39.99 for 3DS games. I don't know why this game is so expensive, but that's a little ridiculous. But as I said, the good news is there's a lot of gameplay. I can't tell you how many hours I've played because when you boot up the game, it just shows you what level you are and what level your Oasis is. It doesn't actually tell you how many hours you've logged in. But if I had to guess, probably between 60 and 70 hours. And there's a post game in which you can take on different side quests and bring even more residents to your Oasis. So that's great. And this is kind of a funny thing to commend the game for, but it does have very good camera angles. I find that when you're in battle, for example, you don't have any weird camera angles where it's disappearing into the wall and you can't see anything, or it's going too high, too low, you're having to correct yourself with the C stick. It's actually, I find that it auto corrects itself to the best angle. And even if you're just wandering and start going in different directions, it follows you. And again, you don't have to correct it manually, it corrects itself. So I find it actually kind of funny that they tell you that it's best played on a new Nintendo 3DS. I actually don't think you really need the addition of the C-Stick. I think that you'd be fine without that, but that's just what I found. Cons. Lots of warping. I did mention that the Aqua Gate does make it easier to get back to town and then back to where you were before. It's still annoying when you're having to do it several times in a row. Some of these bigger dungeons, if you want to get everything in a dungeon, and I usually do, you're going to have to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it does get tiring. It does. So that's definitely something where you're eating up minutes at a time, just reordering your party, and I kind of wish that you could maybe take an additional person with you, or maybe just not have to warp so often in one dungeon. Some of the item drops in this game are a little ridiculous. So there are a lot of side quests that you have to go, well, you don't have to go on. Side quests are always optional. However, they are very good for earning experience in this game, because the main game, I find, is a little easy, and if you're like me and you get a little tired of the regular enemies, you want a little bit more of a challenge, you'll go on the side quests. But they usually call for certain items that are dropped a little less frequently than others. And you'll have to wait for the in-game days to pass and pass and pass and keep going back to those destinations where those items are found. And you'll be playing the waiting game a lot. Because those item drops are rare, apparently. And good luck with that. Even if you bring people with you who supposedly have a higher chance of item drops, no. Good luck with that. And lastly, the AI can be a little bit stupid, a little bit inconsistent. When you're bringing people with you to different areas, anywhere really, I just find that some of them are really good at attacking, and then all of a sudden they're not. They just kind of stay there stupidly gawking at the enemy, not doing anything, or they don't move out of the way when the enemy is attacking, and I'm just like, really? Can you not do what I'm doing and get out of the way? Or let's say, okay, there are these bonus dungeons called labyrinths, and I find that they're kind of multi-leveled. So sometimes the enemies are up on one level and your fellows do not want to follow you up, but you want to switch between them because they have different weapons that might work a little better. And then you end up all the way back down here when you try to switch between them because they haven't followed you. And that gets annoying. Because it's like, really, can you not just keep up? Can you not just keep up for 1 second so I can switch to your weapon and fight this guy over here? Thank you. But on the whole, I do have to say this is a really charming and fun game that is accessible to a lot of different people because it's not that difficult, except I do find that some of the side quests are, in contrast, a lot harder than the main game, but that's typical for most RPGs. And again, you don't have to tackle those side quests if you don't want to. but I feel like kids could play this easily, adults could play this easily, people who aren't experienced in RPGs, people who are experienced in RPGs. It's just one of those games I think will appeal to a pretty broad range of individuals. Similar games to this would actually be something like a Rune Factory, or I think the other game I'm thinking of is called Fantasy Life. If I'm misremembering that name, I'll correct myself on screen, but I think that's what it's called. Just because those are both accessible as well and have a little bit of like town aspects and RPG aspects. They're not too difficult, but they're still really fun. Anyways, if you've played this game, please let me know what you thought of it. I'd love to know. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.